What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and if you're unaware, you can actually, if you use D&D Beyond, claim the first chapter of Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel, the new book that was supposed to come out in June but was delayed till mid-July. The sort of... I've done a bunch of videos on this in the past, so I won't really belabor it too much, but it's a compilation-style book. But to me, at least, it seems that there's a lot more effort taken into account to make sure that this is the best it can be, whereas we have seen some anthology series kind of fall flat. But yeah, I got an email from D&D Beyond, and I also want to thank so many of you out there who messaged me and said, hey, did you see this? Because a handful of you hit me up at the same time as soon as you got the email. So again, I'm always appreciative of any fans, viewers, and folks out there that come across anything D&D news related and flip it over to me. I do my own research and I try to, fact check everything. But if you guys come across something, feel free to send it over to me, and I will gladly, if it warrants a video, make one. And by the way, hey, look, we hit 95K. You guys have driven that number up consistently, and it really does just make it so easy to want to do this. And I've been trying to, like I said, get back into content, but anyway, that's enough out of me. Let's take a look at this and kind of show you a little bit of how you get it. So I'm going to jump over to D&D Beyond right now. Basically, right when you go to D&D Beyond, right on the front page, you can see right at the banner at the top, unlock the first chapter of Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel. It's the first thing here right on the front page. You click this. It said you had to claim the product. It had a claim button there. I clicked claim, so now it says you've claimed this content, and we can go ahead and view it. And you can see it got the option here to pre-order it, but we basically have the entire first chapter. Now, I gotta say, this, I kind of like this. Is this a thing now we're seeing all this kind of stuff because Wizards of the Coast now owns D&D Beyond? I don't know, but we haven't really seen things like this in the past, and this is something we are seeing now. So, I guess if you kind of follow that train of thought, yeah, I guess so. But I think this is a really smart marketing move. We got the Vecna dossier for free, which kind of came out of left field. No one was expecting that, kind of coinciding with Stranger Things. That was really awesome. And now we get the entire first chapter. Now, remind you, the first chapter isn't going to have anything about the actual adventures. It's going to pretty much tell you about the Radiant Citadel itself. And I think that's pretty awesome, and it's a freebie thing that anybody can get. This also could be a great way for you to evaluate whether or not this is a book you actually want to pick up, whether in physical form or digital form. So let's go ahead and dive back in and take a look here. So it says Radiant Citadel, and we can see we have the entire first chapter. So it talks a little bit about what it is, right? Unending mists and unseen terrors of the ethereal plane, the Radiant Citadel stands bright as a bastion of hope. It's a miracle of architecture, a floating city carved out of a single massive fossil that snakes around a colossal gemstone shard known as the Aurora Diamond. Heroes and paupers meet on equal footing in the Radiant Citadel. By common agreement, power and resources are equitably shared, dignity is afforded to all, and great need is met with great aid. And we can see, we've seen this image, this sort of map before with the Aurora Diamond here in the middle. And you can see a couple of specific locations around the outside. So it says, what are the hallmarks of it? It's an extraplanar refuge known for its collaborative society and ecological beauty. Local traditions of oral storytelling preserve ancestral wisdom from many worlds. It says common is widely known, but there's a bunch of other languages as well. So, you can actually have a player version of this as well. So, the Aurora Diamond is the heart of the Radiant Citadel. It changes color for unknown reasons. Sometimes it holds a color for an entire year, but sometimes it can change twice in a single week. Rarely does it ever repeat a color. Some scholars believe each color represents a birth of a new civilization. It is indestructible, Whatever magic hollowed out the gemstone's center and created the preserve of the ancestors is unknown. There was a mention here of the Court of Whispers. You can see that here. And it looks, ruby pangolin. How awesome is that? I was just going to be like, it looks like a pangolin. It obviously is. So the denizens of the Court of Whispers barter for current knowledge. Heralds, criers, bards, and griots, I don't actually know that word, buy and sell information from the 15 founding civilizations active in the Citadel, as well as other lands. The speaker for the ancestors, the leaders of the Radiant Citadel, employ freelancers from the Court of Whispers to keep track of major concerns in their people's homelands, as well as potential threats to the Citadel, while the Shieldbearers of the Citadel seek information so they can identify crisis points where their operatives are needed. So we have the House of Convalescence. Focuses the life-giving energies of the Aurora Diamond, allowing for incredible feats of healing magic. It's kind of like a cleric society here. Let's see. Here's how it's affected. Diamond components. When the spells Raise Dead, Resurrection, Revivify, or True Resurrection are cast in the House of Convalescence. Oh, interesting. A diamond material is never required. I guess the Aurora Diamond is basically a diamond. It says hit point maximum. When creatures would normally roll one or more dice to restore hit points with the spell, they instead roll the highest number. For example, instead of restoring 2d6 hit points to a creature, the spellcaster restores 12. Pretty cool little thing. And this is that kind of flavor that I really like. I think that's pretty simple stuff, but it's pretty neat. The Keane Gloom, just beyond the Radiant Citadel, rages the Keane Gloom, a massive ethereal cyclone. Nothing that enters the cyclone is ever seen again. Scholars have studied it for decades, but only theories about its nature, to the connection of the Radiant Citadel, and what befalls those caught in the terrible throes. That could be a very interesting storyline if you decide to send your characters into that. The Palace of Exile. Adventurers who discovered and reoccupied the Radiant Citadel were from the civilizations that founded the city. The palace was named in honor of Socorro the Exile, its founding leader. Spacious living quarters, blah, blah, blah. Preserve of the Ancestors, this is what we heard about before, is a sprawling domed wilderness cut into the heart of the Aurora Diamond. Lush vegetation grows directly out of the diamond, and the expanse is dotted with jackleberry trees, whistling thorn, and zebrawood. There's also, looks like there's fauna there as well, insects, small birds, and so on. While the preserve has little indigenous wildlife, mostly birds and small mammals, a sect of druids frequently brings injured animals there to be healed and rehabilitated. Drawn by the power of the Aurora Diamond, spirits from countless lands make their home in the preserve. Spirits from the same lands or of similar origins inhabit tiny jewels and assemble in amalgamations known as incarnates. Some are small collections of spirits, but the greatest, related to the Citadel's founding civilizations, are larger-than-life beings that embody the wisdom of ages. And basically, there's the trade discount, which is just a massive trade, open kind of, seems like an open-air kind of market situation. Large quantities of goods, such as entire herds of animals or tons of metal ore, can be transported via the Concord Jewels, described below, to fit quickly and safely. It's a vital outlet. If something were to happen to it, the impact would be severe for both the Radiant Citadel and any of the civilizations around it. You kind of see, again, here's a side view of the Radiant Citadel. All right, so we can see Concord Jewels. It says, beyond the Radiant Citadel, drift the Concord Jewels, which connect the city to its founding civilizations. Each jewel is a building-sized vessel capable of holding hundreds of people and tons of goods. Through the jewels, although the jewels take a variety of shapes, their interiors are similar. A cylindrical core holds containers for goods, including livestock. Surrounding the core is seating for passengers. Each Concord Jewel is linked to one of the civilizations that founded the Radiant Citadel. A jewel unerringly travels between the Radiant Citadel and the homeland of the jewel's linked people. Even if the jewel's people have migrated to another world on the material plane, the jewel finds its way to their current home. And here we can see the various civilizations and the associated jewels. And then it has a little bit about how, there's actually mechanics. I thought it was going to be purely a roleplay thing, but there's actually mechanics to controlling a jewel. It has controls at the center. I guess this kind of fits. It seems almost ship-like, so, this kind of a good idea to start prepping yourself for the concept of traveling with ships and things, crystals and helms and whatnot, as Spelljammer is approaching quickly. A creature adjacent to these controls that spends a minute manipulating them can make a DC 14 Arcana check. On a success, they can direct it to take one of the following actions: land, embark, or plane shift. Okay, we have people that oversee the jewels, and we have a little bit about life in the Citadel itself. And I like this kind of background stuff. This is the kind of things I wish we had for this level of information. Like, you could expand almost a whole book on this for the various different campaign settings. And chapters like this that just discuss in depth, the different areas of Eberron or Ravenloft or so on. I think that could be, I realize that's not for everybody, but I do think this kind of stuff goes a long way. All right, so let's see. As evolution is displayed in the art, clothing, music, perhaps most vividly, the food in the city. While cantinas, tea houses, and eateries serve food and drink from specific communities, the most popular cuisines are fusion dishes. Even kimchi tacos. Diplomacy, relations between the Radiant Citadel and the founding civilizations are often shifting. They send diplomats abroad and house embassies from foreign governments. Okay, so it's kind of just It looks like there's ambassadors and things like that. People interact back and forth between the Citadel and their home civilizations. Here's the obsidian eagle. So it looks like we're having sort of these various gem-related animals tied to the specific houses. So governance and politics. It's governed by a council known as the Speakers of the Ancestors. We kind of heard about them a little bit already. Each speaker is a descendant of one of the founding civilizations. They are chosen by their community and affirmed into the office. Speakers meet openly in the amphitheater in the center of the preserve. All laws and major decisions of the city are decided by majority vote. Debates can become heated because each speaker represents their very different constituents. Consensus and compromises may take days or even months to reach. Governance is public, transparent, and participatory. Laws are not static, but evolve to meet new challenges. Well, that would be a great thing to have something similar to that in the real world. But either way, I think that that's pretty good. Also, I will say, again, folks, when you see these kinds of chapters in a book, if you're writing your own homebrew world, whether you're doing it just for your own, your players at your table, or whatever the case may be, or if you ever have aspirations to develop your homebrew setting into a book of some kind, looking at things like this to see what kind of information they provide, the art and culture, diplomacy, governance and politics. We have a little bit now into law enforcement and justice, right? Public safety and peacekeeping are administered through a variety of councils and organizations. The House of Convalescence helps with those living with mental illnesses, while inspectors investigate nonviolent crimes and use non-lethal methods of detainment. Theft is uncommon. Highly trained local guards mobilized to handle the rare incidents of violence, and citizens are expected to proactively intervene if needed. The worst offenders are sentenced to a controversial Djanian, I think that's how you pronounce it, punishment, where the criminal is subjected to a ritual that prevents them from repeating their crime and then is banished from the city. Lifestyle and society. Every citizen is entitled to a basic income that affords them the necessities of living and dignity and lifestyle. Food, water, and green spaces are equally accessible throughout the city. While housing is public, distributed, and administered through the city council. We have tariffs and taxation, which again, I feel like you don't necessarily think about this when you're homebrewing your own world or your own campaign setting, but these are things to think about because it all comes into play. Taxes are progressive to help reduce the gap between the most affluent and the poorest. High tariffs on imports keep the public coffers full, but the speakers lower or remove tariffs for the civilization in trouble. And this is groups in the Citadel. Okay, so we have, looks like 3 incarnates, the keepers of vast wisdom. We heard about these a little bit ahead of time. Let's see. Most incarnates are small, no more than a handful of gems in the shape of a plant or animal. Again, the obsidian eagle, the ruby pangolin. The least of them originate from spirits lost on the ethereal plane. The largest and most influential are those of the 15 founding civilizations. Okay. The Dawn Incarnates have existed since the creation of the Radiant Citadel. The Dawn Incarnates know everything that transpires in the Preserve of Ancestors, which is why they require the speaker for the ancestors to meet there. And then again, here we have some more of the Amber Scorpion. Each incarnate has a unique amalgamated personality. Most who interact with an incarnate interact with its primary identity. So we can scroll down and see Spirit knows only... Okay. Here we can see all of the different turquoise lion, ruby pangolin, pearl carp, and so on. A grim anomaly, a dead dawn incarnate known as the Sapphire Wyvern, distributes the tranquility of the Preserve of Ancestors. It lies inert, its gemstones blackened and cracked. Scholars believe it was the dawn incarnate of one of the Radiant Citadel's 12 lost civilizations, but all efforts to awaken it have failed. All right, we know about the Speakers of the Ancestors. They're sort of the kind of ambassadors to the founding families. Okay. And then... can move on. As us as Shola is a legendary figure. She's a famed ancient brass dragon. Interesting. And we have these Shieldbearers. I believe they were sort of like the they're sort of like a police force, town guard kind of a thing. At least that's what it looked like there. Braves of the Citadel, heroes in service of the Shieldbearers, preserve the city's highest honor. Okay, and then we get into, again, more stuff that I was talking about that you want to know for your own homebrew world. So we're talking about the defenses. Citadel defenses, what do they have, right? So they've got the Aurora Diamond's illumination also provides strong protection. It radiates bright light throughout the city and dim light 1,000 feet beyond. This is akin to sunlight, so that will affect anything that's affected by sunlight. Excuse me. The primary protection is a powerful ward that can be activated by the speakers. When all 15 are assembled by unanimous consent, they can erect a diamond sphere that envelops the city. It's kind of like a force field. And then it also says, Citadel's attack no fewer than a dozen archmages and 20 mages will be led by that ancient brass dragon if required. The commander of the Shieldbearers also mobilizes his Shieldbearer veterans, while the speakers of the ancestors call on citizenry, so basically militia style. All right, entering the Citadel. Most visitors come by passage on one of the Concord Jewels. There's also one official entrance to the Radiant Citadel, or only one, rather. The Passage of Respite, the Concord Jewels dock adjacent to it, and people using other means to travel to the city are directed by guards to enter through it. At any time, 6 guards are stationed there. They are led by a mage responsible for accepting tolls. These guards often deploy magic items such as helms of telepathy. Well, that's kind of interesting, so they can kind of see what's going on there. And that has legends and lore. 250 years ago, the great brass dragon Shola undertook a quest to find the Radiant Citadel. For millennia, the dragons of her lineage had recounted tales of its glory. As threats loomed on the horizon, she looked to the legend of the Radiant Citadel as salvation. She gathered a mighty expeditionary force of adventurers. They made their way there. Many believe that the full potential of the Radiant Citadel can be unlocked only when the 12 missing civilizations are found and their representatives join the speakers of the ancestors. Some hypothesize the Citadel can unleash an incredible weapon, while others believe the Concord Jewels can be used to travel anywhere in the multiverse, or that the Radiant Citadel can be shifted between planes. The most fervent dream about tapping the power of the Aurora Diamond to resurrect lost civilizations and whole worlds. That's pretty nuts. Some scholars studying its origins posit that the Citadel is a relic of the mythical First World. Now, we've heard a little bit about that from Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. Others speculate that it was a fortress, a refuge, or even a weapon in a war that transpired in the last days of the First War. Recently, 2 founding civilizations were discovered and reconnected to the Citadel. And it says, detailed in Beyond the Radiant Citadel at the end of this book. The success has prompted new rumors in the Court of Whispers about the 12 civilizations still missing and how they might be found. And then, okay, we have a little bit of adventures here, talking about the just a D4, and it'll kind of tie into some of the chapters coming up later. And then again, it says using the Citadel. So the Citadel linked to multitude of worlds. While the 15 lands represented in this book are the best known, you can decide where the Concord Jewels reach and basically link it up to any world you see fit. Has a little bit here about reaching the Citadel. Well, Concord Jewels already create paths. You can replace the missing jewels anywhere you decide, linking more lands to the Radiant Citadel. And then again, it has some more information here. And then again, it says connecting the adventures together. The Radiant Citadel is a useful tool for connecting D&D adventures. The Citadel doesn't connect to all places in the multiverse, just the material plane locations linked to it by the Concord Jewels. As you develop your campaign, consider what adventures or parts of lengthy adventures you want to run. Rather than spending time determining how characters get between remote locales, create links between adventure sites via the Radiant Citadel, which is a great thing to do because this is kind of showing you how you could use this as sort of a hub world to link in your own campaign. And even if it is just a hub and you don't do anything that contains in this book, you can still use the Radiant Citadel as a go-between between whatever locations you want to have in your homebrew campaign. Use the Citadel's network of jewels to create permanent connections between any lands and adventure sites you please. Groups from the Citadel, like the Shieldbearers or the Spies in the Court of Whispers, can then point the way toward adventure. This makes the Radiant Citadel a useful bridge between wherever your characters are and any adventure in your D&D library. And I gotta say, I kind of like the fact that they are coming out of the gate and saying, like, yeah, we have our own adventure. We have an anthology here where you can have a bunch of different adventures that you can use. But at the same time, they're also like, feel free to just use this in your own campaign and just have it work however you want. And I really do appreciate that. I think that that's a good call too, because it definitely, there are a lot of people I saw up front that were like, I don't know if I really want to do this. But the fact that they're kind of going out of their way to say, like, okay, yeah, maybe you don't want to use it for the anthology stuff, but this is a really cool concept of a hub world. I guess people who like Sigil and kind of the Planescape kind of thing, it would be a similar aspect. As I've said before, it is not replacing that. People were very up in arms that they thought that that was what Radiant Citadel was. It's not. It's just something new. Anyway, I digress. I did want to point out, though, that there's a couple other things. One, I actually am very excited that I'm going to get a chance to interview personally Ajit George, the kind of mastermind of the Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel. I've talked about him in the past and the kind of crazy concept and story of his life and how he kind of came to be the co-lead on a book while not actually working at WotC. Pretty crazy stuff. And I think that outside perspective is definitely something good to shake things up, and that's why I am legitimately excited for this book. More, like I said, I was kind of lukewarm on it at the start, and I've really warmed up to it because I do feel like the time and things have been dedicated here. So I do have one other thing I want to take a look at and show you here. So the Dungeon Masters Guild posted about this. It says, journey through the Radiant Citadel and unlock a whole new world of storytelling. Wizards of the Coast Radiant Citadel setting will join the DM's Guild when this adventure book is released July 19th. Creators head to D&D Beyond now for a free preview of these magical lands. So what's pretty exciting is, if you're unaware, and again, like I said, I don't want to... I kind of have found myself, not that I really want to be, and I'm definitely not the person to ask, but a lot of people, I made a couple videos talking about the open game license and how things work, and people come to me and start asking me questions about what they can and can't publish, what they can and cannot kickstart, and things of that nature. I am not the foremost authority on that by any means, especially given the fact that I haven't technically published anything on the DM's Guild or anything like that to be able to even speak to it. But the way it works is, if you do publish things on the DM's Guild, they have to be for 5th edition, even if they do provide resources for 1, 2, 3, and 4, where you can buy those books on the DM's Guild, which is an option that you can do if you're looking at PDF or even printed out versions of old books. You can get that via the DM's Guild, but you can only create new content that you can then sell for 5th edition. And you are also only able to create it for certain settings, right? You can create it obviously for the Forgotten Realms. You can create it for Eberron. You can create it for, I believe, Ravenloft. And now they're saying you can create it for the Radiant Citadel. There may be others that I'm missing, but for example, I don't believe you are allowed to technically create things on the DM's Guild for Critical Role. Now, you may be saying, well, obviously, because Critical Role has their own things, but they did also have 2 books, Explorer's Guide to Wildmount and Call of the Netherdeep, are both WotC-owned, WotC-published D&D books from Critical Role, but you cannot use that. You also can't publish your own homebrew campaign setting on the DM's Guild. You could publish your own homebrew campaign setting on DriveThruRPG or your own website or Kickstarter or what have you, as long as you follow the open game license rules, but you can't publish your homebrew stuff on the DM's Guild. You can publish like subclasses and things, but you can't publish campaign settings that are not in those campaign settings that I listed. And the reason I say that is because I want to come back to this tweet where they basically say it's going to be added to the settings on the DM's Guild, which means that you can publish content for the Radiant Citadel. And you can see here that Anthony Joyce said right here, Journeys Beyond the Radiant Citadel, 7 gazetteers of expanded lore and encounters from the designers of Journey Through the Radiant Citadel, 16 pieces of commissioned art, and 3 cover frames packaged in a free commercial use art pack for DM Guild creators. You can see right here, expanded lore and encounters in this companion supplement to Journey Through the Radiant Citadel. We can see some different art and things here. So I don't believe that this is out on the DM's Guild yet. We can go and look it up. See if it's out there currently. No, it doesn't look to be yet, but it will probably be on, I think they said July 19th or something like that, when the book actually launches for real. But that's awesome that we're going to get, not only we have the first chapter free to kind of get some ideas and maybe build out campaign ideas. Other people can third-party publish to the DM's Guild, and we already know that based on that tweet, there's an entire whole sort of gazetteer to provide expanded information from the folks who actually designed the book in the first place, giving you a bunch of different options to go beyond the Radiant Citadel, provide you more information, lore, encounters, and things like that. So right out the gate, you've got that ready to go that you can pick up as soon as everything launches, and you'll have even more content if you like Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel. So anyway, folks, that is my coverage of this first chapter of the Radiant Citadel, which I think is pretty awesome. Like I said, I like this concept of teaser bits. I'm assuming they said the first chapter. There's no way to know because it isn't even titled chapter 1. I assume that they give us the entire first chapter. There's not like parts of the chapter that we're missing. But even if they were to do this for everything going forward, and I do think we're going to see that, I think this is a very smart move, and it also has to mean that you're confident with your product, because if your product is crap and you put out the first chapter for people to read for free and they read it and they think that it's crap, then no one's going to buy it. So that's sort of a double-edged sword. Your content that you're allowing people to see for free needs to be either really good, engaging content, or enough to get people to want to figure out what the rest of it is. But I think that because we saw the Monstrous Compendium, right? Volume 1, Monsters of Spelljammer, that was free, 10 free monsters. We are seeing the first chapter of the Radiant Citadel for free. We know there's going to be expanded stuff on the DM's Guild. We know that the free intro adventure for Spelljammer is coming out in July, followed by Spelljammer in August. So they're starting to do this whole, like, here's a little taste, see what you like about it, and then if you want the full thing, come and buy it. It's a pretty smart marketing move, I gotta say. They're on that grind to increase those sales, as we know they are from all of the investor meetings. I don't know. Seems like they might have a way to go about it. But that's enough out of me. What do you guys think? Do you think that this concept of teasing and giving us some stuff for free, rather than us having to hunt and peck through Twitter, messages or Dragon Plus articles or things like that, and instead we actually just get the whole first chapter in advance? I think that's pretty cool, but I'm curious to see what you have to say as well. Again, be on the lookout for my interview / conversation with Ajit George, co-creator of Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel. That'll be coming probably sometime later this week, early next week. Be on the lookout for that, and I will see you all next time.